And hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Wednesday, middle of the week episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends in the top right hand corner of the screen, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same on this show every single day. Anthony Hartwig with you. Gary Althiser, like he will be every Wednesday throughout the wrestling season, and Scotty Mincher in the bottom down there. Scotty, we were having some issues before the show. Did we fix them? Can we hear you now?
I can
Gotcha.
hear you guys.
Yep.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
We are good to go, which is golden. That means we're having fun on a Wednesday. Gary, we talked about it last week, was kind of our broad preview of teams to watch out for, players to watch out for, wrestlers to watch out for, and what our expectations of the season was. But this week we have the official, tournaments to preview this weekend. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a couple of dual meets going on tomorrow. One will be on ysnlive.com. So we have a lot to preview this week. Exciting week in wrestling.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's here already. And most years we would have already been started in the past. We would have been started by now, but the state pushed the start date of the season a week forward. So instead of starting the first weekend in December, we're starting the second weekend in December. And there's a whole lot going on this weekend for the 35 YSN schools that offer wrestling.
Did they do that to kind of counter the football longer season to say, let's give them a little bit more cushion between football and wrestling?
Yeah, I'd imagine that was probably the main reason they did it. Wrestling season is long and it's a grind. So you want to give the kids as much rest as you can. And with how far that football season goes, I know I checked every single YSN school schedule. Most of them were updated, and the ones that went deep into the playoffs, a lot of them aren't starting yet. They're taking a couple more weeks to get started, which I mean, I really don't blame them.
Except South Range, they're going to be one of the teams starting tomorrow. They have a dual meet with Southeast. This one will be broadcasted on ysnlive.com, so I kind of want to start our preview with that one since you'll be able to watch it on the network. Southeast is not a YSN team, but they will be next year, so we better start to get familiar with them. And South Range, definitely one of the premier wrestling programs in the area and in the YSN network, but under a new coaching staff now with Coach McEwen, retiring after last year. What do you expect from another program in South Range that is welcoming a new era of a new coaching staff? We saw football not miss a beat under Coach Rock after Coach Yeagley left. What's wrestling have to do to not miss a beat after another historic coach hangs it up and steps down after a really long good run with that program?
Well, congrats to Coach Frank Giordano for taking over that program. He's been around that South Range program forever. He's a familiar face there. I think it's going to be a seamless transition for him and his staff that he's got put together. What do they have to do? They just have to keep doing what they've been doing. They've been great. They've done well every year for I don't know how many years now. Mr. Marculin did an amazing job there. Levi Hiley as well before him. They built that South Range team to what it became and what it is now, the state champions of the dual tournament. A lot of state placers, state qualifiers. I checked, they have 24 guys on the roster. That's a very healthy size roster for a Division III school. Southeast also has exactly 24 kids on their roster as of right now, and both teams have 2 state-ranked wrestlers. So this ought to be a really fun duel. I really think that the South Range is just going to keep humming along the way that they have been. I don't see any reason for them to not keep going. They're 2 ranked wrestlers. They got the number 12 ranked 120 pounder in Caden Welker, and the number 2 ranked 175 pounder Tyson Seaschultz. Seaschultz, he came out last year with a bang as a freshman. Really went. He went and met all the expectations that people had for him and then some. So I think they're both going to have great years. Southeast has the number 10 ranked 113 pounder Dom Kimball and the number 3 ranked heavyweight Preston Bello. So I'm imagining that these teams are probably going to want Kimball and Walker to go at it. Kimball's at 113, Welker at 120. I'd imagine maybe Welker wants to certify at 113. Maybe he comes down to that tonight, depending on when they got their alpha, or Kimball may bump up. I'd imagine we'll probably see that match. Hopefully, anyway, that will be a really good match. And at heavyweight, the Bello kid, I look for, not in this anyway, but maybe he'll be wrestling Dallas McCracken sometime here in the near future. But I think this is going to be a fun duel. And shout out to Chris Colucci covering that. Good luck to him in that first match of the season.
When both teams have two state ranked guys, but they're not lined up with each other with the weight class. You have two state ranked guys on South Range, but different state ranked guys in the weight classes for Southeast. So you kind of give each team the edge in those two matches where they're putting their state ranked guys in the match. The rest of the night, it's got to be who's going to get those matchups between guys who maybe aren't same ranked, but by no means are they not good. But who's going to win those ones between the hedges per se, as you might be able to say with two state ranked guys probably having the edge in their matches.
Yeah, well, like I said, maybe we'll see Welker and Kimball go at it. I don't know. It depends on what's best for their team.
Right.
If you're allowed to bump up one weight class in Ohio, so if they both are where they're expected to be, then one of them will have to bump up. If not, who wins? It depends on the depth. And also, you got to remember, this is the first match of the season and the first day of actual competition. So a lot of teams have guys who are going to be coming down in weight. But if this is the first match and they just got their alpha done, you can't lose. You can only lose 1.5% of your body weight a week. There might be some empty weight classes, so that's going to matter too. So it depends on a million factors. Probably the most experienced team whose weights are where they need to be sooner will probably win this matchup.
Pirates, Raiders, they're both burgundy and gold, and they both have South in the title. It's about as familiar as you can get. Ravenna Southeast making the trip down to South Range, as you said. Chris Colucci will have the call for that dual match. Not the only one that's going to be happening tomorrow, though. West Branch taking on United. Props to United taking the challenge and saying we'll go right at a bigger school in West Branch and do what we can to compete in the matches that we can get on the mat for. What do you see out of this one, Gary?
Well, last year United won this by 1 point. Talked to Coach Bo Marriage, and I think he's pretty familiar with the guys at West Branch. So I would expect another really close one. Looks like both teams have 21 or 22 on their team. And then both have some female wrestlers too. So I imagine they're going to get their female wrestlers matched up to wrestle as well in this duel. This will be a fun one. The talk of this one, though, is obviously the number one ranked heavyweight in Division III, Dallas McCracken. I know everybody is going to be keeping their eyes on him this season, seeing what he can do and how he'll open up the season. But I imagine this will probably be another close one. Coach Bo Marriage, he always does a nice job of getting the kids out for the team. And, he's got 30 kids on the team with his female wrestlers. That's a very, very healthy program. So, yes, he's going up. West Branch is a bigger school district. But I don't think that really matters here when you've got about the same size roster and probably the same experience.
30 is very good, I think, for a United team. That's probably the biggest non-football roster their sports teams have, to have 30 in one sport. Outside of football, it might just be the biggest sport they have roster size wise, because I don't think their basketball team would touch 30, and definitely their baseball team and softball team probably don't touch 30, and I'm guessing their volleyball team wouldn't touch 30 either. So outside of football, maybe the biggest roster sport they have. It's a big props to Coach Bo Marriage and what he's been able to do down there at United, building a strong program that people want to get involved in. Then we have a big weekend, Gary, where a lot of teams are going to be in action over the weekend. What are some things we have to watch out for?
Okay, well, the biggest thing in the high school wrestling world is the Ironman tournament this weekend at Walsh Jesuit. I checked; it's usually the second week of the season. It looks like it's going to be this year, because the state, did push things, back a week. So that's the biggest thing in the high school wrestling world. There aren't. I checked the seeds. There were no seeded wrestlers locally. I don't know how many local wrestlers will be there. I haven't seen the brackets or anything yet. It's only Wednesday, but that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I did check with the YSN schools. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different tournaments YSN schools will be participating in. this weekend. And the biggest one of them, as far as how many YSN schools will be involved, it looks like the Ashton Hind or Hind tournament in Madison at Madison High School. Orange, Grand Valley, Edgewood, Salem, Austintown, Fitch, Conneaut, Jefferson, and Boardman will all be there for that one. As far as the smaller school tournaments, Malvern, the Hornet Holiday Tournament, Wellsville Southern, United, East Palestine, Western Reserve will all be there. Crestview will be at Beechwood. Beaver Local, they're sending their teams to a couple of different ones. They're going to a tournament in Kentucky. I'm imagining they'll probably take their best kids down there, and then they'll also be at Cambridge. The Dry Tech duels in Pennsylvania will see Canfield and Girard. The Rick Link Invitational at Union Local, all the way down south in Belmont, Ohio, will have East Liverpool and Edison. Fitch duels will have Fitch and Howland. Corey Rawson will see Jefferson. The Heart of Ohio will see Lakeside, and the Hawken Invitational Pie Valley will be there.
Let's talk first about where you're going to be. Right, you're going to be in the Hornet Holiday Classic down there at Malvern. A lot of other schools that you're pretty familiar with down there as well. What are you seeing out of that one?
Well, Malvern's got a nice team. They've had a nice team the last few years. They got several state-ranked kids. They won the tournament last year pretty comfortably, if I remember correct. I imagine that will probably be the same this year. I'm sure United will be challenging them. I'm not sure what other outside schools will be there, but it's a good small school tournament. There'll be a lot of schools, Division III schools there, and there'll be some nice competition. But I would say Malvern would most likely have to be the tournament favorites as of right now. But that depends. They are near the Canton area, and you never know who's going to show up from that area. There are a lot of bigger schools there and a lot of good wrestling traditions there. I remember one year we were there and Minerva showed up. And we weren't expecting that. Minerva has a really good Division II program. So things like that could happen. But as of right now, I'd say Malvern they're the favorites.
When do you know who's going to show up? I mean, do you have time to prepare? Like you said, you Minerva just showed up. Did you kind of you were there and then all of a sudden, hey, look, Minerva's here, or did you know in advance that Minerva was coming?
So it just depends. They'll usually have the brackets released the day before or so you can find out, a day before, maybe 2 days at the most. If everybody gets their rosters in early, they use Sakurasoft Systems. The website there, which is an amazing website for wrestling tournaments because of everything that it tracks. And it shows you scores. It shows you, you can even go in and look at each period and what scores there were, takedowns, reversals, those kind of things. So it's a great site. So if they give us access early to look at the brackets, we'll be able to know then. I'm guessing Friday will probably be when we'll find out, which is just the day before. And the day before, you're trying to get your team ready. So it's tough to even really prepare. You can get a quick glance, but then you don't know who's going to make weight. And
Right.
you don't know what kids you woke up sick and how they'll have to shuffle things around. So you never know.
Just show up to the mat with your best
That's it.
best you can do. That's all you can do. Gary, the other thing I wanted to ask, I'm still fairly new to the wrestling sports, and when you said this, I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Beaver Local, taking their team to two different tournaments. You said probably their best players going down to Kentucky. You can do that. You can split your team up a little bit and take one portion of your team down to one tournament and another portion of your team down to a different one.
Yeah. If you can have a couple schedules, the state allows you to have a couple schedules, and each student is allowed 20 total points. We talked about that last week. How every match has a point total assessed to it, as long as the wrestler doesn't go over 20 points total for the season by sectionals. Yes, you can do that. I mean, Austintown Fitch is hosting the Fitch duels, but then they're also sending some of their wrestlers to that Madison tournament as well. You get big teams like that, you have to do that if you want to keep them on the mat. There's some teams that have three teams, some even more than that. Who knows? You get those bigger Division I schools where some of these teams will have 50 kids on their team or more. You've got to get them on the mat to keep them fresh, to keep them interested, and to keep them in shape, because you want to have your backups ready too, because you never know who's going to get hurt, who's going to get sick, who's going to move weights, or who's going to win a wrestle off.
So kids have point limits. Do the teams have point limits too? Like, does your actual team have a point limit of how many things they can do?
Well, it's just 20. So
20.
the kids can do 20. Yeah.
You get points for both that you send your kids to, right? So Beaver Local will get a point total for the Kentucky tournament and the other one they're going to, but they'll get both those points added their team limit, right?
No. So
No.
I mean, it'll be added each schedule. So each
Okay,
schedule
gotcha.
has 20 points. Yeah.
Gotcha. See, we're learning. We're me and Scotty on the train, holding on for dear life. speaking of speaking of Scotty, I want to bring him into the fold. Scotty, what kind of things are you looking for that you want Gary to answer this week?
Yeah. So Gary, last week you kind of talked about your a little bit about your team, and you talked a lot how they were green, and I just wanted to know for you, because it is like any sport. Um, there's always at the beginning of the season, there's overreactions. It seems one way or another, but it's a long season to go. So I guess for you, how important is it, like these matches? If you had to put a percentage on it, how important is it that you get off to a good start? Do you think it's one of those things, if you struggle early, it's not really a big deal because you have a lot of time to kind of rebound?
That's a good question. It definitely, it really depends on the kid, on the individual. And most times, it's even in life in general. If you get off to a good start, it seems to get the ball rolling, and usually, in my opinion, that's because of your confidence. Your confidence is up, but it by no means it determines anything. You'll see kids start slow, and they'll hit a stride and go like a lightning rod into the sectional and postseason tournaments, or you'll see kids start fast and really come out of the gate doing well, and then struggle and then fade away at the end of the season. It just depends on the kid. The season is long and it's a grind. I feel like once you get towards the later part of the season, you kind of have to reel back some in practice, and you kind of have to give the kids a break because it is such a physical sport. It's 100% contact, so it's constant contact. So it really depends. You just have to kind of balance out what you're expecting of the kids, what they're doing in practice. Mentally, you got to keep them sharp by keeping them loose. I really firmly believe in this sport, the more loose that you are, the better you are, no matter what. I think you can say that about any sport, really. But in the grand scheme of things, one tournament, if you don't do well, it doesn't mean anything. Especially, I mean, you get into late February, the last Saturday in February, you're at your sectional tournament. What happened on December 9th doesn't matter.
I'm going to flip that question on its head because there are a lot of teams that come out and do have a lot of success early. Maybe it's even success that they don't even expect to have early because they feel like, they have growth to do, or they have some kids that are question marks and they come out and they do really well. What kind of a benefit is it to get out to a really good start and then have that wiggle room where if you still have kids that you want to, have grow or learn more stuff, hey, we got that wiggle room now because we got off to a pretty good start and we maybe stole some wins that on paper we shouldn't have won.
Just a personal example. A few years ago, our first tournament of the year, we had been waiting for that year. We had worked. We knew that that was the team. We had some eighth graders who came up to be freshmen, who had success in junior high and before, were now on the roster, and then we had some seniors who were coming in and had great junior years, and we won the first tournament of the year. And I'll tell you, for us, for a small school team, that when I took over the team, I had a real inexperienced, not only a green team, but like all first year team. To get to that point, it was a really hard grind for us to get there. And what it really did, I think it made the kids believe in us and who we were as a team, and that we could do good things. And we ended up winning 2 more tournaments that year. We had a great dual record. We went to the regional semifinals. So we had a great season. And I really, truly believe that first tournament of the season, we went in, not only did we win it, we had 2 kids that didn't make weight, and I think we still won the tournament by like 50 points or something. So I mean, we really, really did well, and I think that helped us. Does that give us wiggle room? I don't know if it gave us wiggle room because I only had I had exactly 14 weight classes. I had 16 kids on the roster, and by some miracle of God Himself, they were spread out, and I was able to fulfill a full roster for just one match. But it was the first time ever I was able to do that. And after that, I filled of the 14, 12, or 13. But I never have any wiggle room as far as filling the weight classes go. But I did feel like it bought me some wiggle room that, hey, if we don't do well later, we know that we have in the past and we can in the future. So I think mentally it did a lot for us. And if you're a team that, like us, who had been working and working and working and trying to get better, and it finally happened, I think that was huge for us. If you're a team that's coming from success and you don't do well the first week, I don't think it's going to matter much.
Before we end this segment of the show, I do want to talk about the big tournament that a lot of YSN teams are going to be at in Madison. I know we went over the teams that will be there real quick, but a lot of YSN teams there. What do you see out of that tournament? Who are some big names that you're kind of looking at for the YSN teams that are going to be down there? What kind of things go into be doing well in a big tournament like that down at Madison?
This is the first I've heard of the tournament. I've seen. I looked at last year with the teams that were there. I didn't recognize many of them at all. This must be something fairly new, or it's new to this area. With this many local teams going, I don't know. It probably is something that fit a lot of teams' schedule, and I'm guessing it's probably going to have a lot of teams. You're looking. I bet you there's going to be 20 teams there. I mean, Fitch is there. Obviously, that's the biggest school in the YSN network as far as wrestling goes. Fitch and Boardman, the two biggest schools that'll be there. Those are the ones that I would be looking out for. And then Salem, I checked Salem's roster. They got over 40 kids on their roster. I mean, they always do a great job of getting a big turnout on as far as kids coming out for the team. But man, that's a really a feat for them to be able to get that many kids out. That was more than I saw on pretty much. I think that was the biggest one that I saw of all the schools that I looked at. So I'll be interested to see how they do, because you're talking they're going 2, maybe 3 guys deep at each weight class, depending on where the weight spread out.
Can't wait for the start of the season. And Gary, when we come back next week and we have episode 3 of season 3, we're going to have a lot of results to talk about. That's always the fun part, seeing how these kids do. When the results come in, we'll know who to bring on the show. We'll know who had the big performances. So we're going to start to bring wrestlers on starting next week. We're going to try to get one every week if the schedule miraculously works out like it did last year. I wanted to shout out the wrestlers last year because every single wrestler that came on, like, it was miraculous. I couldn't believe it. Every one of them had availability at 1:00, and we didn't have to pre-record anything. We were to bring them all on live. It just made our lives a little bit easier. If we have to pre-record, by all means, we will. We'll do whatever it takes to get some of these kids on the show. But to have all of them be able to go right at 1:00 was one of those things that you just can't explain. It was a universe God kind of thing. Like, okay, let's do it.
Well, wrestlers aren't. I'll say it again. I'll say it tomorrow, and I'll say it the day after that. They don't get the recognition they deserve.
Yep.
With the amount of work that's put in. And, it's not like football where you got practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You do a walkthrough on Thursday. You have a game Friday. You watch film Saturday, off Sunday. We're practicing Monday through Friday. And then we're wrestling for 12 hours on Saturday. And we're doing that all year. Or like basketball, where they got 2 games a week.
Right.
So they're getting a break from practice. These kids are grinding every single day. And not only they're doing that, they're trying to watch their weight.
Exactly.
And they're trying to do things while they're completely and totally physically exhausted and keeping up with everything else in life. So it's great that you guys started this segment, and we can bring these kids on and really shine some light on them. And now with us being able to get some duels and some tournament finals broadcasted, this is going to be great for the area and for the sport as a whole.